Let me tell you something powerful today. It's not about chasing them. It's about mastering yourself. Because if you understand the psychology of avoidant attachment, you stop reacting and you start attracting. Here's the truth. Avoidants don't crave people who chase. They crave people who are emotionally safe, assured, and just out of reach enough to be a mystery. Not a game, not manipulation. It's healing. It's emotional intelligence. It's a shift in how you love yourself first so others can feel safe enough to love you too. And when you master this psychology, avoidants don't just stay, they crave your energy. There's a powerful shift that happens when you stop chasing people, especially those with avoidant attachment. See, chasing someone who constantly pulls away feels like you're running after love with open arms, only to find they've already turned the corner. It's exhausting, it's painful, and most of all, it doesn't work. Because avoidant people don't respond to emotional pressure, they respond to emotional safety. And emotional safety begins with you, not them. When you chase, what you're really doing is communicating, I need you to give me something I don't feel within myself. That energy, no matter how kind or well-intentioned, feels heavy to an avoidant. It triggers their defense mechanisms. It tells their nervous system this is unsafe. I might lose my freedom. I might be swallowed up. So they distance themselves. Not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to feel safe in closeness. Now, here's where the transformation begins. When you stop chasing and start showing up as someone who is deeply rooted in your own self-worth, everything changes. You begin to radiate peace, stability, detachment not from love, but from fear. And that emotional stability is what makes avoidants lean in, not because you tricked them, but because for the first time, they feel emotionally safe enough to connect. Imagine you're like a tree, strong, calm, and rooted. No matter how strong the winds blow, you don't chase the storm. You just stand. And that stillness, that confidence makes people want to be near your shade. That's how attraction really works. When you chase, you lose your grounding. But when you stand tall, grounded in your peace, people naturally come closer. It's not about pretending to be indifferent. It's about truly being okay whether they come closer or not. You stop trying to earn connection and start embodying connection with yourself. That's what avoidants crave deep down, someone who doesn't need them to fix anything, someone who isn't trying to control the pace, someone who lets them breathe and be, while still offering warmth and care. And something else beautiful happens when you stop chasing, you start seeing yourself. You realize your value isn't defined by someone else's attention or distance. You begin to love from overflow, not from lack. That's not only attractive to an avoidant, it's healing for you. Because the most magnetic energy in the world is peace. And when you embody that, you become unforgettable. Let them crave your calm. Let them feel your absence when you no longer overextend. And watch how silence, self-assurance, and emotional freedom speak louder than 1,000 messages ever could. You don't chase love. You become it. When it comes to mastering the psychology of avoidant attachment, there's one truth that changes the game completely. You must become the emotional thermostat, not the thermometer. Most people mirror what they feel from the other person. If someone's distant, they panic or pull harder. If someone's cold, they try to warm them up. But here's the secret: avoidants don't need more intensity. They need someone who can regulate the emotional climate, not react to it. Think about a thermometer. It simply reflects whatever temperature it's given. If the room gets cold, it drops. If the room heats up, it rises. That's how many of us behave in relationships. We reflect the emotional state of the other person. But a thermostat sets the temperature. It decides the mood. It regulates the environment. It stays consistent, steady and sure, and in doing so creates comfort. That's what an avoidant is silently craving. Avoidant individuals are used to emotional chaos. Either they've experienced pressure in their past, or they've had to protect themselves from emotional overwhelm. So when they pull away, it's not personal, it's protection. And if you react to their pullback by getting anxious, demanding, or emotionally volatile, it confirms their fear. Closeness equals chaos. But when you stay calm, grounded, and self-regulated, even in their distance, you show them something rare: emotional security. This is where real connection begins. Because you're not trying to force closeness. You're not trying to win them over with pressure or over-explaining. You simply are the safe space. You hold your emotional state steady, no matter what they do, and that's when they start to trust you. Not because you chase them, but because you show them what healthy connection feels like without fear. This doesn't mean you tolerate emotional neglect or stay silent about your needs. It means you communicate those needs from a place of peace, not panic. You don't scream to be heard, you speak with calm conviction. And whether they rise to meet you or not, you don't lose your balance. That's what makes you powerful. Because let's be real, anyone can react, but very few can regulate. Anyone can chase, but few can lead the emotional dynamic without manipulation. That's where your strength lies, in becoming someone who sets the tone, holds the line, and refuses to abandon themselves just to feel temporary connection. And when you do that, when you become the thermostat in the emotional relationship, the avoidant begins to feel something they rarely do, safe enough to come closer. They don't feel chased, they feel chosen, not with pressure, but with peace. And that's what makes you unforgettable. Control your emotional climate and let them rise to meet your warmth. There's something undeniably magnetic about mystery. Not confusion, not games, but true, grounded mystery that comes from living a life so full, so rich, so purpose-driven, that another person becomes a bonus, not a lifeline. If you want to understand what truly makes avoidance crave you, you must understand this. Being a little out of reach isn't rejection, it's attraction. Avoidants fear losing their independence. They associate closeness with pressure, expectations, even emotional suffocation. So the moment someone starts clinging, over-explaining, or emotionally leaning in too hard, their survival instinct kicks in and they back away. But when they meet someone who's warm, kind, and self-contained, it short-circuits that fear. They lean in, not because they feel obligated, but because they're intrigued. You see, mystery doesn't mean being cold or unavailable. It means having a center of gravity that isn't moved by how much someone texts you, validates you, validates you, or leans in. It means you're not waiting for connection, you're living fully with or without it. That kind of energy is rare, it's powerful, it's addictive. Think about the most attractive people you've ever met. What made them unforgettable? It wasn't how often they needed your attention. It was how whole they seemed on their own. Their calm, their joy, their passion. That's what avoidance and honestly, most people are drawn to, because it feels safe and exciting at the same time. When your life is full emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you stop becoming overly available. Not because you're pretending to be busy, but because you are. Your time has value. Your energy is selective. You don't drop everything for a half-hearted text. You don't rush to fill silence. You're not panicking when there's space because you trust that if it's real, it'll stay. And in that space, they begin to miss you. They begin to wonder what you're doing, where your focus is, how you stay so calm when they pull away. That curiosity becomes desire. That desire turns into pursuit, not because you played a game, but because you mastered your energy. The truth is, availability is beautiful when it's earned. When you're emotionally open, but not emotionally dependent. When you respond with love, but not with need. That's when mystery becomes magic. You become someone they can't quite figure out, and that makes them want to understand you even more. So don't be afraid to be a little out of reach. Not as a tactic, but as a byproduct of a life that doesn't revolve around them. Let your mystery come from depth, from goals, purpose, peace, and let that silence speak for you. Because when you're no longer chasing, when your world is already full, they begin to crave entry into it. Avoidants aren't afraid of love, they're afraid of losing themselves in it. That's why the key to making them feel safe isn't constant attention or reassurance. It's something far more subtle, yet incredibly powerful: empathy without emotional pressure. If you can offer that, they'll begin to associate connection with relief instead of fear. Here's the mistake many people make when an avoidant pulls away. We often react from our own fear of disconnection. We text more, ask questions, seek clarity, not because we're wrong for wanting closeness, but because we want to feel secure again. But that energy, however well-intentioned, translates as neediness to the avoidant mind. And neediness feels like emotional danger to them. It triggers the very response you're trying to avoid: more distance. Empathy is the opposite of pressure. It says, I see you. I understand that closeness feels intense for you sometimes. I'm not here to overwhelm you, I'm here when you're ready. That doesn't mean you silence your own needs. It means you express them with compassion, not desperation. And when you do that, something incredible happens. They feel safe in your presence, not suffocated by it. When you master this, you stop reacting. You stop needing reassurance from someone who struggles to give it. You stop over-explaining your worth. Avoidants often grew up in environments where emotional needs felt like burdens, either theirs or someone else's. So when you come in with calm understanding, without trying to fix them or force connection, they feel something they rarely do: respected, not chased, not judged, just understood. That empathy becomes the bridge. You're not asking them to open up. You're simply showing that you're not a threat to their freedom, And here's the paradox: the less you pressure them, the more likely they are to move toward you. Because for the first time, connection feels like a choice, not a trap. Instead, you lead with emotional intelligence. You create a soft space, not a loud one. You communicate through calm presence and non-reactive strength, and that's where the attraction deepens. They begin to feel something they don't even fully understand at first: a pull, a warmth, a craving to be near the very energy that didn't try to own them. That's not manipulation, that's maturity. So stop thinking you need to convince them. You don't. You just need to show them something different, something safer, something more spacious. Let your empathy speak louder than your fear, and let them come forward at their own pace. Because when they feel that you're not here to take anything away from them, that's when they start to give you more than you ever asked for. There's a certain kind of power that no one can take from you, and it's not charm, looks, or strategy. It's self-worth. If you want avoidance to crave you, not just notice you, this is the foundation everything else is built on. Because avoidants are deeply sensitive to emotional energy, and the one thing they're most drawn to, even if they can't explain it, is a person who knows they are enough. When you don't believe in your own worth, everything you do starts coming from a place of please choose me. Your texts, your presence, your conversations, they carry the silent message: am I enough for you yet? That's not love. That's fear wearing a mask. And avoidants pick up on that energy instantly. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But it's also what makes them pull away. Not out of cruelty, but because the pressure to validate someone else's worth feels overwhelming to them. Now, flip that energy. Imagine you're not chasing anyone's approval. You know you bring value. You know your presence is a gift. You don't need to be loved to feel lovable. You already are. That energy, grounded, non-needy, whole, is magnetic. It's calming. It creates space instead of pressure. And that's when avoidants lean in. Not because you proved yourself, but because your peace became more attractive than their distance. This is why self-worth isn't just self-love fluff. It's the most practical shift you can make. It's the quiet confidence that says, I don't chase, I attract. And if you can't meet me in peace, I won't lower myself into chaos. That standard doesn't push people away. It filters the wrong ones out and draws the right ones in. When your worth becomes internal, when it's not dependent on someone texting you back, choosing you, or validating your feelings, you stop being reactive. You stop giving your power away to every little move they make. You start responding instead of reacting. You start leading instead of following. And that emotional self-containment is what avoidants can't stop thinking about. Because it's rare, it's unfamiliar. It's everything they didn't know they needed. You no longer show up to be picked. You show up because you already picked yourself. And here's the truth. Once you truly know your worth, you stop trying to convince anyone else of it. That silence, that calm, that presence, it says everything. Let your self-worth be so loud that their fears go quiet. Let it create a space where they don't feel pressure to connect, but inspired to. Because in the end, the person who needs nothing is the one who attracts everything. Healing your own attachment style is the secret weapon no one talks about, but it's the difference between repeating painful patterns and finally becoming someone who naturally attracts respect, love, and emotional safety. Because here's the truth: you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If deep down you're carrying a fear of abandonment, you'll unintentionally send out signals of anxiety, hypervigilance, and overgiving, even when your words are calm. Avoidants subconsciously detect that energy. It makes them feel like they're being pulled into a role they're not ready for, the emotional caretaker. That's when they withdraw. Again, and again, and again, until you begin to wonder if you're the problem. But you're not broken. You're just mirroring wounds, and so are they. Healing those wounds means no longer using the relationship as a mirror of your worth. It means no longer needing someone's closeness to feel complete. When you begin doing this inner work, understanding your triggers, soothing your nervous system, separating your identity from someone else's behavior, you unlock something priceless: emotional freedom. You stop taking their distance personally. You stop panicking during silence. You stop writing stories in your head about what every delay or shift might mean. Instead, you return to yourself, your calm, your grounding, your clarity. You become the safe space, not just for them, but for you. And when you operate from that healed space, everything changes. You're not triggered by inconsistency, you observe it. You don't chase reassurance, you give it to yourself. You don't fear losing someone because you've finally chosen not to lose you. Avoidants are drawn to people who feel emotionally light, not because they're perfect, but because they don't carry expectations like hidden weights. Healing your attachment gives you that lightness, that presence, that peace that says, I want connection, but I don't fear disconnection. And that energy is irresistible. It's not about becoming cold or detached. It's about becoming secure. When you're secure, you don't need to control the outcome. You trust the process. You set boundaries, not ultimatums. You express needs, not demands. You love with openness, not with fear. The most attractive person in the room isn't always the loudest, the smartest, or even the most physically appealing. It's the one who is whole, the one who doesn't seek rescue, the one who radiates peace. So before you worry about how to make them come closer, ask yourself, have I come home to myself first? Because when you do that, when you heal that inner space, your energy shifts. And that shift, that's when avoidants stop running. They don't run from you anymore. They start craving the one person who finally doesn't need to chase. So here's the truth. The more you chase someone with an avoidant attachment style, the more you push them away. But when you stop chasing, when you step into your own emotional power, something remarkable happens. The dynamic reverses. Not through manipulation, not through silence games, but through authentic inner alignment. You become a presence that doesn't beg for love, but embodies it. And that's what creates emotional safety for someone who fears losing themselves in connection. The first step to turning this around is understanding that your power doesn't lie in how often you reach out, but in how grounded you remain when they zero. You begin to set the emotional tone of the relationship not by controlling, but by stabilizing. Like a thermostat, you decide the temperature. You no longer reflect chaos back with anxiety. You become the calm. And in that calm, the avoidant feels something unfamiliar: peace. A peace that doesn't demand or threaten. A peace that doesn't try to pull or fix. A peace that feels safe enough to stay near. The more you root yourself in this regulated energy, the more you give them a reason to stop running. Because the fear they're running from, emotional pressure, no longer exists in your presence. And let's not forget the power of mystery. When your life becomes full of meaning, passion, and purpose beyond romantic attention, you become someone who inspires it. You're no longer constantly available, not because you're playing games, but because your energy is too sacred to pour into someone who hasn't yet shown they can hold it. That kind of self-containment doesn't repel avoidance, it attracts them. It draws them in slowly, steadily, until your absence starts to feel more confusing than your presence ever did. And that mystery becomes magnetism. But none of this works if your energy is still rooted in unhealed wounds. That's why your greatest strategy is self-healing. When you shift from "I hope they like me" to "I've chosen to like myself," everything changes. You no longer personalize their distance. You no longer feel abandoned by their silence. Instead, you see their patterns clearly without trying to fix them, and you protect your peace. This is what makes you different. This is what makes you rare. And avoidants don't crave chaos, they crave the calm they never learned how to trust. Be that calm. Not for them, for you. So in the end, the goal is never to force love, chase connection, or convince someone to stay. The goal is to become so emotionally safe, so grounded, and so whole that the very thing they've been running from becomes the only thing they feel drawn to. You don't do this by changing them. You do it by mastering you. And when you do, you stop craving validation, and they start craving you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, reflect, and open your heart to this message. I know these aren't just words, they're experiences you've lived, battles you've faced, and truths you're finally ready to claim. And if you've made it this far, it means you're not just interested in being wanted, you're ready to be worthy in your own eyes first. That's real growth. That's real power. Never forget, you are not too much, you are not too sensitive, you are not unlovable. You are learning, healing, evolving, and that makes you unstoppable. Don't let temporary silence make you forget your eternal worth. You are the calm in the storm, the peace in the chaos, the light someone didn't know they needed. And one day, whether it's them or someone new, someone will recognize it because you did first. Until then, stay strong, stay grounded, stay true to your emotional freedom. Keep doing the inner work and let your energy speak louder than any words ever could. You don't need to chase anything. What's aligned will meet you in your peace. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing growth over fear. Thank you for becoming someone even you are proud of. Take care of your heart, and goodbye for now.